All right, today we are going to take a look at the Nuvo jHorn. Now, I've done a video using some other Nuvo instruments before, primarily using their simpler woodwind instruments along with the J sax. I do not think I have yet done a video featuring their J flute or the clarineo, I believe they call it. But I believe that I now have all of the Nuvo plastic instruments other than the standard recorder. I've got their Recorder Plus. So if anybody has any questions about the Nuvo instruments, hopefully I can do my best to answer them. But today we're looking at the jHorn. Now, I've wanted a plastic brass instrument for a long time. And I had not bought one for several reasons. Part of it being the price, part of it being kind of, I guess, the stigma of a plastic instrument. And a little bit of my background, I played trumpet in junior high and high school and switched to euphonium in college. But I still, in a lot of ways, I'm still more of a trumpet player than a euphonium player. My brain defaults to treble clef over bass clef, even though I was a better euphonium player. And even now, I still prefer playing the euphonium over the trumpet. And I'm better at it now, still, than the trumpet. In my brain, I still think of things from a trumpet point of view a lot of the times. But I didn't want to buy a plastic trumpet because if any of you are brass players that have changed between instruments, you might know it's typically easier to go from a smaller mouthpiece to a larger mouthpiece, and then trying to go back to that smaller mouthpiece after you've gone to a larger mouthpiece is difficult. So because I was set in the embouchure and the form of playing the euphonium, even though I wanted a plastic instrument, I didn't want to buy a plastic trumpet. Not very good at the trombone, so I didn't want to buy a P-bone. And to buy a plastic euphonium is just a lot of money that I didn't want to do. So I saw the jHorn, and it wasn't very expensive. It comes with 3 different mouthpiece cups, which they say serve to emulate a high brass sound, a medium brass sound, and a low brass sound. And so that's what we're going to look at today. Is I'm going to play something on the trumpet, try to play the same thing on the jHorn, play something on the trombone, try to play the same thing on the jHorn, play something on the euphonium, try to play the same thing on the jHorn, and just kind of see how it compares. The other big selling factor for me with the jHorn was that it comes with an extra set of slides so that it can be played in either the key of B flat or the key of C. And with the way that I play music now, I really wanted a brass instrument in the key of C. It's a lot easier for me to kind of improvise in the key of C, especially if I'm doing something with the piano or doing something with the guitar, these other instruments that are in C. While you can, kind of transpose in your head, that's not a skill that I'm particularly fast at. So the fact that it's not a trumpet, it's got a larger mouthpiece, it wasn't that expensive, and it could be playing in multiple keys is really what made me pull the trigger on this. So let's get into the comparisons. I already know I'm going to have to edit some stuff out because it's going to take me a couple attempts to try to match it on the jHorn. And really the best way I can explain why, and again, not everybody will understand this, but if you're a trumpet player or euphonium player and you've ever tried to play a horn, the French horn, the horn, you know that the partials on a horn are much closer together. And that's the big issue that I run into with this. when trying to play it as a trumpet, so to speak, is that because the fundamental is so much lower than you're thinking of when you're thinking as a trumpet, the partials are really close together, and they're very difficult for me to kind of find the fundamental of the trumpet because it's not a trumpet. So there are some benefits to it not being a traditional brass instrument, but there's also some downsides. And so for me, and maybe this is because I'm a poor musician, but when I pick up a brass instrument, I always like to find the fundamental and find the partials and kind of just get set mentally in that instrument. And it's very difficult to do with this because it's designed in such a strange way that you're usually, or you're often playing high above the fundamental. I don't know if that makes sense or not, particularly to non-brass players. That's the best way I can explain it. So let's grab a trumpet, and I'm just going to do some basic standard pep band tunes. Nice, short, and sweet, just to compare it. I'm going to try that again. As you can tell, it was hard for me to find the starting note there. I think I went above and below before I found the actual starting pitch. And the partials are just very close. I don't have a lot of control. I don't feel like I have a lot of control. I think that's about as good as I'm going to get it right now. We'll try one more time. Flub there. That was probably more me than the horn. I don't play brass that much anymore. So it takes me longer to get going on it. Once you've got it, it comes a little bit easier. I also feel like, at least in the trumpet mode, I feel like I have to play harder. I have to blow harder on this than on the trumpet. And I don't know if that's also part of the being higher up in the partials or not. But it's different. So I kind of have to get set into this differently than I get set into the trumpet. But let's move on. I'm going to try the trombone. I am not a trombone player. I've never been. So I tried to pick something nice and easy for myself. Don't hate on my poor positioning. Not a trombonist. All right, so we're going to switch now from the small mouthpiece cup to the medium mouthpiece cup. So again, I feel like I got to find the fundamental. Those low notes are hard for me to hit with this mouthpiece. That might be more me than the mouthpiece, but worth noting. Gross low range on my part. I don't think that's necessarily the horn. So, since I keep complaining that everything's too high and I like the big mouthpiece, let's go to the big mouthpiece. So with the euphonium comparison, we will now move to the largest mouthpiece cup. Obviously the mouthpiece isn't getting any wider. It's mostly just getting deeper, but it does, you can feel the difference. I'll just say that. Very weak sounding low end. Very little control. It feels very weak. It feels very sad and pathetic. I believe it said that you can use an alto horn mouthpiece in this, which I don't have an alto horn mouthpiece. Wonder if my trombone mouthpiece will get me anywhere. Not in tune. Feels a little more control, but still sounds really bad in my opinion. So the jHorn, is it a magical instrument that's going to replace trumpets and trombones and euphoniums? No. To me, it feels like there's a lot less control with it. When you're playing at the high end, the partials are very close together, which makes it very difficult for me to hit the correct note. You could argue that I'm just not that good of a brass player. That's fine. But these are marketed at beginners. So if it's difficult for me, it's going to be difficult for a beginner. On the low end, it just sounds weak and unsupported. And obviously the fact that it's plastic, it doesn't have that metallic sound to it, which I think adds a lot of power. So I'm glad I have it. I have not spent very much time on this, so it's of course possible that if I play it more and if I spend hours on it, that I'll get better with it. I'm hoping that it will fill the role that I wanted to fill, which is to have a brass instrument in the key of C that I can play while I'm playing with other instruments, and I can kind of just set it down and off to the side and not have to worry about denting it or anything like that. These are marketed as being highly durable and able to be dropped and stuff like that. I haven't tested that, but I feel much more comfortable about setting this aside, just sitting on the ground, than something like this, which I always am very aware of where I put it. So it is what it is. It's not a replacement, I don't think, for anything that we already have. I think it's just another option for specific cases where something like this is going to be a better fit than something more traditional. But that's just my opinion. That's all I've got to say about the jHorn. Like I said, if anybody has any questions about any of the Nuvo instruments, feel free to ask, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you.